It's not who gets in the first word that counts, but who gets in the last word. Now, the guys that always get in the last word, brothers Tom and Dave.
Hi, I'm Tom Laz.
And I'm little brother Dave Laz.
Welcome to another episode of The Laz Word.
The never-ending episodes of
The Laz Word. And we want to open today's show with a little tummy chuckler because the auto show is on at McCormick Place. And we need to tell our listeners about an incident at the auto show about 2 years ago. Chrysler had a series of cars they used to call K cars some years ago. And they came up with a prototype called an S car. And it was S was for special because it was run by fuel pellets. They had a container of the fuel pellets in a glass jar on the table, and the man was explaining that you put the fuel pellets down the gas tank, add water, and the car would run on that. Well, a fellow came in near the end of the presentation, and he didn't quite hear all of it, but he did see the pellets on the table, and he asked the demonstrator what those were, and he told that person that they were fuel pellets. And he says, "What's the purpose of the fuel pellets?" And he says, "That's what makes the S car go." All right.
Oh, my God. I got to admit you're my brother.
So if that gets you off on a good chuckle and a good groan, that's what we want.
I'm going to move to the rant and raving section?
No.
It's not a rant and rave?
Not yet.
Oh, we're going to do the other.
We've gotten some emails from some of our listeners when we were on another station, and it's a request that we bring back a little feature that we used to have, and that feature was called Mind Trap. And Mind Trap is a question of thinking outside the box. So we'll ask a question at the beginning of our shows, and somewhere in the middle, maybe at the end, who knows, we'll give you the answer.
Yeah, when we feel that
they go kind of like this.
When we feel we've toyed with them enough, and
that's right,
kept them interested in the show long enough.
That's right. It's a cheap reason to make you want to listen to the show to get the answer. Example: there is an ancient invention still used in some parts of the world today that allows people to see through walls. What is it?
Amazing. That's one.
And the answer is Windows. Okay.
What about Macs?
Captain Frank was out for a walk when it started to rain. He did not have an umbrella, and he wasn't wearing a hat. His clothes were soaked, yet not a hair on his head got wet. How did this happen?
You going to tell him later?
No, that's an example.
Oh, okay.
Captain Frank was bald.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. That's now, out of the box.
This is the mind trap question that
outside the ballot box even.
That's right. This is the mind trap question that for today. Deceptor, a famous magician, is standing on a concrete floor holding a raw egg in his outstretched hand. Without the aid of any objects, he is able to drop the egg 2 meters without breaking its shell. How could he accomplish this feat?
Okay, and that's
Stay
the one
tuned.
You got to hang around for.
During the show, we'll tell you how he accomplished this feat.
And
rant and rave time?
Want to rant and rave?
Yeah, last week, Governor Quinn signed the law to give Rahm Emanuel lots of money. And by that, I mean the speed cameras that are going to give you $100 tickets. And as the governor said, it's for safety. If we can save the life of at least one child, we've saved the world. Governor, come on, don't lie and don't insult the intelligence level of the people of the state of Illinois. You're going to get a camera geared with a radar unit that's going to catch a license plate. That's all you're going to get. You're not going to get a photo. You're not going to get who's driving. You're going to get a license plate. You're going to send out a $100 ticket that is, in this day and age, not all that much money. And I
comparison to hiring an attorney and going to court. And, and other fines that could be imposed for a moving violation.
So don't tell me it's going to make a driver safer when you send it out to the owner of the car. I mean, Dave and I, at least, are shamelessly giving you mind trap as something to listen to and sticky. But we're telling you, it's a shameless ploy to get you to listen to the show. Unlike the governor, who won't be honest with you. So, with that, I've ranted, raved, and I'm down off my soapbox.
And now we move on to the substantive part of the show, the part that counts, with our guest. Welcome, Mickey Starub. Welcome to our show, The Last Word, here
Dave,
on
thank
WIND.
you for having me.
And Mickey is the chairman of Proud to be Republican. And as some of you may have heard us before, both Tom and I are Republican committeemen in Naperville and Lisle Township. And we are here to see about talking about Republicanism. And Mickey, you started this. This was something you're proud to be Republican, which incidentally, the website is what, Mickey?
www.proudtoberepublican.com.
There we go. And this is something that you and others have started, and you came up with this idea. And how and why did Proud to be Republican get started?
Well, you'll notice, Dave, that does not say proud to be a Republican. What it does say is proud to be Republican, because there's a lot of Republicans I'm not very proud of, but the ones I'm most proud of, most proud of are Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan. And we started it out of, frankly, a passion. And I want to again thank you and your brother for having me on the show today. I'm just an American trying to make a difference, and that's how it all started.
Well, that's how generally that's how generally we've done it. Somebody trying to make a difference, trying to take responsibility and make something happen.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, great point. And I've since I thought about why did I start it, and I think the best acronym I could think of is I'm a car guy. Now I mean that literally and figuratively. I understand you knew some car dealers in the past, and your brother just referenced the auto show.
The escargot. Si.
Yes.
Those naughty French.
Oh, okay.
Cars move at a snail's pace.
Well, they do now in Chicago, thanks to those cameras. Huh?
Who wants to go through those?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So I'm a car guy. Actually, personal note, I had 13 cars before I left high school.
Wow, that's pretty good.
And I've owned 82 cars.
Wow. I remember my first little dump truck I used to drive when I was 3. That count too? That counts as one of mine?
That's and I say that because I've always grown up being a car guy, but now it means something different.
Okay.
I am a Christian American Republican in that order.
Well, you're just about ready to get blasted by the mainstream media from every side that you can with that acronym.
Yes, but you'll notice it all centers around the word American, and that's exactly the reason why I got involved in this. I knew we were heading down the wrong path when I saw what was happening with the Obama campaign. I actually learned from an acquaintance of mine at the time, who has since become a good friend. He was one of Obama's first fundraisers, of Obama's connection with Tony Rezko, of which Obama largely denied, didn't he?
Basically, or just kind of sloughed it off in the usual. Well, before I answer that, let me tell you about this, that type of thing.
Let's talk about the weather.
That's the guy who got him the super deal on the property next door.
Absolutely, and just barely knew him. Well, I know from my own personal acquaintances that was not true, and I also noticed how he kept on referring himself to, or comparing himself to, the first Republican president that we ever had, Abraham Lincoln, and that I thought, why would he be doing that? Why would he keep on making comparisons for himself to Abraham Lincoln when?
Did Abraham Lincoln know Tony Rezko? Did he get a deal on some land in Springfield?
He must have. He must have. And it really upset me because I know it's not true. For one thing, he's a Democrat running for president, trying to compare himself and hitchhike on the coattails of Abraham Lincoln, and that was just not right. And I knew we couldn't trust him, but I didn't quite know why, and I kept on building up more reasons for it. And really, the third reason was I really felt that the Republicans weren't defending themselves, and the Democrats were just really decimating their reputation. And a lot of Republicans weren't necessarily proud to be Republican themselves. They weren't even putting it on their campaign material. And that's
that was one of Tom's and my. That's one of our pet peeves.
Come on. If you're going to have a yard sign or a billboard or something,
or mailing,
and
or anything,
and you're running as a Republican, damn it, put the elephant on there or put Republican or something, and have the guts to say this is who I am and this is what I stand for.
Or if you're in a Republican, like coming in DuPage County, and you're a Democrat, well, are you ashamed? Are you ashamed to do it? You know. So yeah, that's our pet peeve on that point. So,
we're going to get into more about what it means to be proud to be Republican and what
remember,
it means
that's not proud to be a Republican. That is proud to be Republican is what we're going to get into over here and talk about Republican principles and what the Republican Party should be and what the Republican Party was and what the Republican Party can be. We'll be back here on The Last Word at WIND 560 AM.
Now, back to the show with the brothers that always have the last word, Tom and Dave.
Okay, you're back here with Tom and Dave, and we are in segment 2. Segment 2. Since we are being French today with your escargot, I talk about the second segment of the show as segment 2. En deux, right?
Well, may we begin segment 2?
May we? We may. We may we?
All right, we got an auto man. Actually, he's a car guy. And that stands for Christian American Republican Mickey Starub. And we were talking about
who is chairman of Proud to be Republicans. Proud to be Republican.
And we were talking about what it means to be Republican as opposed to a Republican.
Like you have said that one of your slogans. Your slogan is Republicanism is not just a brand; it's a belief system. So let's expand on that, Mickey. What belief system are we talking about?
We're talking about believing in the fundamental Republican principles and the principles that, frankly, that this country is built on. And that's why I thought it was necessary not to necessarily pinpoint toward one person, because people are really imperfect and they're relatively ephemeral or temporary.
Speak for yourself.
But it's the principles are really the key, and that's why it's called Proud to be Republican, which means to believe in Republican principles and to support them. Not just for your own sake, but for your community and for the country.
And what principles do you feel that we want to expand on?
Well, there's our Miss Brooks and Mr. Conklin.
Yeah, they're all principles, yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. That was my apologies. Let's talk Republican principles.
Well, as I mentioned before, there are a lot of people that don't necessarily identify themselves as Republicans, and especially during the 2008 election, a lot of them were just kind of hiding it. And they weren't putting on any type of marketing material, et cetera. And it really that didn't make sense to me. So I started a campaign across the country. I tried across the state, and I just picked up a new car that was kind of flashy. And I thought I planned on storing it. I thought I'd bring the orange Challenger out of the garage.
Ooh, yum yum.
Yes, and I drove around Illinois. We started it in Springfield at Abraham Lincoln's home, and we finished it in Dixon at Ronald Reagan's home. And what I did is we drove around the state interviewing people why they're proud to be Republican. And I just put them on tape. And you wouldn't believe
you had to squish them pretty flat to get them on tape, didn't you? And put them on tape.
And some, that's definitely the case. But we went around the state, and they really, you should see the tears in their eyes. Men, women, children, just talking about why they're proud to be Republican. It was all attached back to being American. And
it's not very popular these days, you know that. In some circles, being American.
Yeah. I would disagree with that. As we say in court, I would strongly disagree with that. Not just disagree with that, I would strongly disagree with that. I think that what Mickey might be talking about is people willing to stand up and speak and say and take on somebody when they disparage Republican and American ideals.
I'm just saying that I think some of our definition and Mickey's definition of patriotism and Americanism is very different than some other people's ideas on the east and the left coast.
Oh, well, it goes without saying.
And along the lakefront. So that's what I was talking about, Tom. But But be that as it may, let's go on. Let's go on with what you found.
And that's why we
found out.
We want to provide him with a forum so that people can maybe get some ideas, and when their neighbor disparages Republicans or the Republican Party or Republican or American ideals, they'll have the guts to say, "You're wrong,"
and say it.
Yeah, and this is why.
So what did you find out, Mickey?
What I found was people would align themselves with the founding principles in our founding documents, especially the Declaration of Independence, that we're given some, granted by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that's what I think it really means to be American. It's to believe in the founding documents, in the founding principles, and mostly around that one word, liberty. And I think the one thing that the Republicans can do differently is really get the word out that they are the party of freedom. If you look at their policies in general, their principles, it's maximizing freedom and opportunity for all Americans.
But that seems to have gotten twisted. That somehow the Democrats have for a while been successfully twisting that idea. And I'd like to go back and bring this up to our listeners that it wasn't the Democrats primarily who was responsible for passing the Civil Rights and the Voting Rights Act of 1964 and 65. Those would have never passed without Republican Party support.
You wouldn't have had a civil war
without
if the Democrats had been elected in 1860.
But even saying about the metamorphosis of 100 years later, well, you still had you still had the Southern Democrats opposed to it. They didn't vote for it. It was Republican Dixiecrats that wanted to put a stop on it, and that just seems to get shoved aside.
Well, I think demographically, you're talking about large cities having these big blocks. I mean, Illinois. Let's face it, from a political standpoint, you've got to kind of break even in heavily Democratic Cook County and do well the rest of the state in order to win. And you got to figure out a way to get rid of that mindset of everybody that the Democrats are the answer. What was the question?
Yeah,
absolutely. And talking about ranting and raving, by the way, you mentioned earlier, I couldn't believe when I opened up the newspaper this morning and what did the headlines read? True Blue Illinois. That's a bold-faced lie.
It's True Blue Cook County or Chicago.
Exactly. What the Democratic Party has won the governor's office by usually winning 3 out of 102 counties. What gives the owner of the Chicago Tribune the audacity to call this True Blue Illinois and it's only, as you said, Chicago, Dave?
Basically, I mean, 99% of it is Chicago. Well, when we talk about, like I said, one of the things that you've mentioned is you have proud to be a Republican, and then you have the Republican Party. So do you feel at the present time that the Republican Party is supporting Republican principles, or are there factions? Is the party fragmented where there are those that are supporting the real principles, those that are not? In your travelings around the state and the country, how have that come out?
I think they do conceptually, and perhaps more like window dressing. They say they do, and they may think that they like Republican principles, but they don't. What they don't do is they don't lead with principles. And I'm telling you that when I've spoken with some of the leaders in the party, including the Senate Minority Leader, and I asked about the principles, and she talked about compromise being more important.
Oh,
I went to the chairman of the state party and asked about principles and if that's the reason for the state party, and he said no, it was to raise money and get volunteers.
Oh,
and I said, but what about the principles? What about marking the brand and the principles? This is not, and this is, by the way, republicanism. Since we do live in a republic, by the way, republicanism is not just a brand; it's a belief system. And I really believe in my heart that if we led with that, if we led with the principles, which are permanent, not so ephemeral and temporary as a person, the party would be a whole lot better off.
Well, there's always a thing about it. I mean, one of the things that I think Reagan had and was able to say, I have principles and I have a vision, and this is where I want to take the party. This is where I want to go. And it seems to me that the concept of compromise in Illinois in some respects, and largely in the country at large, Congress, United, and the Senate, et cetera, is that compromise is Republicans moving in and agreeing to let the Democrats get some of their way, but not Democrats ever compromising and saying, we're going to give back to the Republicans. See, that's when you agree with the Democrats and support their things, that's bipartisanship. When you try to tell the Democrats that they should agree with something that the Republicans are doing, no,
you're an
obstructionist.
You're
an obstructionist, yeah.
They do a better job of marketing and messaging than the Republicans do. That's certainly for sure.
You know what's ironic about that? We're supposed to be the party of we're supposed to be the rich party. We're supposed to be the party of the billion and trillion dollar backers, and yet it's the other party that seems to be doing a better job of getting the message out. So where are all these trillions of dollars coming from to do the marketing? Mm-hmm. I don't see them being there. Or at least let's put it this way: I don't see them being used as effectively as they are supposed to be used. I think that's part of the problem. Is what you're saying is, I mean, even late Richard J., as a Democrat, said, you told the precinct captains, you got to get the message out. What's happening out there is people don't understand what we're trying to talk about. Because he was a little bit on the anti-media side, back at that time. So you got to go out and you got to take the message to the people. And that's one thing we need to do here. And we'll be back. We'll be back with Mickey Starub, WIND AM.
They're lawyers, so you know they'll always have the last word. Here's Tom and Dave.
Well, we're back with Mickey Straub, chairman of Proud to be Republican, and you can find more at www.proudtoberepublican.com.
Or if you'd like to email Mickey, it's mickey@proudtoberepublican.com.
So, and you can find out more information about Mickey and what his organization is about.
And you can sign up for their newsletter. They have an email newsletter. So you can go to Proud to be Republican, put your information in, and you'll be getting, a bi-weekly newsletter?
Actually, it is a weekly video or a newsletter, but 90% of the time it's a video, which we do called Tuesday Talking Points.
Right.
And we are, by the way, we're twofold. We are a resource center for principled Republicans and concerned Americans.
Like just a quick thing over here that you can send out to the last Tuesday's talking points is about the Catholic Church versus Obama, or Obama versus the Catholic Church issue. But we'll touch on that in a little while. Let's go back to the question, I think, about the issue of compromise. We were talking about what compromise means. And what do you see compromise means between Republicans and Democrats?
Well, you made a great point that they think the idea of compromise is if we don't agree with them, then we're obstructionists and we're trouble. They don't believe in compromise because, as I think John Tillman, chairman of the Illinois Policy Institute, said it best. He wrote an article called "The Political Vice," and what happened was that you have different inside the vice are the politicians, and you have the media, the public, and special interests kind of squeezing in on them. And unfortunately, most of the special interests have been funded by the left. And
right.
Absolutely.
Left.
And
correct.
Left, right.
Right.
and what's happened, they keep on pushing to the left, and the more the politicians are being pushed to the left over the last 10, 20 years, which is why the state's been controlled by the Democrats for so long.
Theoretically,
you're moving the normal.
You're moving what would be the center point, arguably, by trying to go far left.
Thank you, Tom, for catching that. They're moving the center point. We went compromise. We keep on moving left, and unfortunately, they look at this as a marathon. And I think one of the primary or the challenges that the Republicans have is most of us think it's a sprint, and so they make two steps left, and we push them one step back right, and we say, oh hey, look at us, we won. And they go two left, and we go one right, and say, hey, look what a great job we did. But we're still two steps to the left, and that's what's happened with the state.
So now what role and direction should the Republican State Party be taking?
Well, I can't say I know the answer to that question totally, because I'm still learning about how it all works. I'm first and foremost a concerned American and a businessman and a family man that's concerned about the direction of our state and our country. But from what I can tell, from what my opinion is, that I think the Republicans could do a lot better job in leading with the principles, in defining really what it means to be Republican, to do a better job, I think, of vetting and holding people accountable, and to if they're not supporting Republican principles, then they shouldn't run as Republicans. And overall, trying to understand, to let people know and remind people that this is, being Republican is not just a brand; it's a belief system.
Now we have, every time we talk, well, this is the critical election, but there are critical with a small c and there are critical with a capital C. I would say that we are on a critical with a capital C in this upcoming election, especially with the presidency, with the Congress, with the senator. That this historians will look back at this election and they will see too and say what is and what could have been, depending on if Obama is reelected or not. So I think the three of us here in the room over here definitely share a feeling that America is on the wrong path.
And I need to jump in because you have a little card that we were talking about making as a billboard. And you listeners, you ought to see it. I don't know if it's on your website, but it's a business card. And it's got a picture of the Statue of Liberty on the left with its right hand extended. And it's got a picture of Obama on the right with his left hand extended.
Symbolically. Yep.
And the question and the issue on the card is liberty or socialism? You pick. And that's what we're talking about.
That, unfortunately, Tom, is exactly what we're talking about. If you look up the definition of socialism, you will, I think, see a picture of Obama next to it. This was a billboard idea that we designed 2 years ago, but quite frankly, I don't like to lead with that, and I would prefer to get overall consensus and not offend anybody. But I think this is, if there ever was a year to have this billboard show up across the country, perhaps first in Texas. And I hope anybody that knows anybody in Texas wants to push that through, feel free. Send me an email, and I will be happy to send you a copy of it.
And that's Mickey at proudtoberepublican.com.
Yes, sir. And I know that your listeners understand and realize that this is a critical, with a capital C, Dave, you're right, election. We must do something this year. The direction of the country, we are on the wrong path. And eventually I'm going to launch that website because I own wrongpath.com.
Well, I think one of the things we're talking about especially is that just the uproar that's coming over the Catholic issue and the hospital issue. If there ever was a wrong path, and everybody showed that we've been double-crossed, and a lot of people have been lied to, that is one of them. Well, we'll be back here in our next segment of The Last Word with Mickey Starub on WIND 560 AM.
Didn't get enough of your family for the holidays? Here's two brothers you can always count on for The Last Word, Tom and Dave.
Okay.
We are back here with Mickey Straub, the chairman of Proud to be Republican, and we're talking about our concern for America being on the wrong path and America's future. But
we need to have credibility with our listeners.
See?
And for those of you who stuck around because of our shameless tease, we're going to give you the answer to the mind trap question.
Yes.
The mind trap question. Deceptor, the famous magician, is standing on a concrete floor holding a raw egg in his outstretched hand. Without the aid of any objects, he is able to drop the egg 2 meters without breaking its shell. How does he accomplish this feat? And the answer is, he holds the egg at a distance from the floor higher than 2 meters. As it falls through those first 2 meters before it hits the floor, it will have fallen 2 meters without breaking the shell.
Yeah, that's thinking outside the ballot box, as we say here in WIND.
So that's kind of what you have to look forward to. We'll have another mind bender for you next week, thinking outside the box. Now that we've restored our credibility, let's get back to our guest.
And considering talking about America being on the wrong path, most people don't think of America as any elective office having an emperor. But I think here in Illinois that we have decided to start. We have an unofficial emperor, if not de jure, at least de facto, Emperor Madigan. Have you ever had any dealings with Emperor Madigan, Mickey?
Dealings, no. I did meet him on several occasions. And the first time was a very unique environment. I was actually at a birthday party for one of the state reps at her house, and he was one of the guests. And I took a picture with the two of them, and I love the rep, and we certainly think a lot alike and concerned about the community and et cetera. And I did have a chance to talk to Madigan a little bit there, but I'm amazed how long he's been on top, like you said.
1982, I believe, is when he was first elected as Speaker of the House, and there was that 2-year hiatus when Republicans had the majority in the 90s, and then he's been Speaker. He's been Speaker ever since, and I would dare to say, probably the most powerful Democrat in the state. I think even eclipsing Mayor Emanuel. Ergo to remember.
Absolutely.
And we had Boss Daley in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, and now we have Emperor Madigan. And certainly, I would say that the philosophy of the Democrats in the state, dare I say the nation, looking where we're facing, is not exactly a philosophy of curbing spending. Or could I be wrong? Could I be wrong in that?
You're absolutely right about that. They're not looking to curb spending, and if I were to have another discussion with Michael Madigan, I'd ask him what kind of legacy he'd want to leave, and I think he's had a legacy, a very good legacy thus far in his own circles, being a man in power. But what is going to be in the aftermath? And I think it's never too late to turn. And so hopefully he'll figure out a way to turn the machine before his legacy goes down in smoke.
Well, he was. Let's face it. Through the 80s, we had Governor Thompson, we had Governor Edgar, we had balanced budgets. We had a AAA credit rating. I don't know if you're aware, Mickey, but Illinois has the worst credit rating.
I know.
We have a worst credit rating in California. Now, people talk about California being an economic basket case. We are an economic basket case. So he was the Speaker of the House at a time when we had good fiscal policies. And I don't understand why those were let go by the wayside. I just don't understand why the Democrats got into that mindset.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Maybe Tom has the answer to that one.
I don't think any of us. I think it's the entitlement. I just think
it is. If I
entitlement.
Look, if I come to you and say I need you to vote Democratic today, and here's $20, I could get indicted. But if I say vote Democratic and we'll pass some stuff and we'll give you things, that's politics, I guess.
Absolutely, Tom. And as you mentioned earlier about the and during your rant and rave segment about the speed cameras, there's a reason why they're doing that. There's two reasons. Number one, they need to fund their spending addiction. And two, they need to fund their vote bribing machine.
And as Tom said, and we're not talking about the old days where you'd have somebody come to the polling place and you give them $5 or $10. When we're talking about using our money
yes,
to go ahead and create programs that get people addicted, and then they have to stay with it. And just like I was saying, if I give you $5 every day, no reason at all. Mickey, you're a nice guy. Here's $5. Mickey, you're a nice guy. Here's $5. And I did that for, say, 2 years. At the end of 2 years, you come to me. I'm not giving it to you anymore. Wouldn't you have a sense of entitlement? By that time, you would have gotten the sense of entitlement. Like, who are
Absolutely.
you? Who are you to stop giving me this money? I built my economic. I figured this into my budget, and now you're going to take it away from me. And you got to watch what you're going to give, because at some point in time, if you know you can't sustain it, it's going to have to be taken away.
It's almost like the drug analogy, that they give a little bit of drugs and smaller drugs, and eventually gets to bigger drugs. Money is, in a way, a drug, and it becomes a dependency from the people that are receiving it. So they have to bring more money in to fund that machine, which really is their vote bribing machine, because the more money they give away, the more money they get the more votes they get. And Alexis de Tocqueville was right. The American democracy will last until the public officials realize that they can bribe the public with the public's money.
We've had Senator Dillard on here. We've had Representative Rady. We've had Senator Sandek on, and they have each respectively, Randy. Mickey. They've come up with plans that that could save billions. I mean, each of them individually has said, in this area we could save $1 billion, in this area we can save $1 billion, in this area we can save $1 billion. And it doesn't seem to be that hard if you really look at it. So we'll be back here with the final segment of The Last Word on WIND 560 AM.
Now, back to the show with the brothers that always have the last word, Tom and Dave.
We didn't start the spending.
No, but we got to try to stop it.
That's for sure.
During the break, Mickey, you were talking about some of your experience on the Illinois legislative floor. And maybe our listeners might want to understand how the sausage is made. Or maybe they don't, but we're going to tell them anyway.
Well, you already settled their stomach down, right? So we can do it.
Yeah.
Okay. You had a little interesting foray on the floor of the Illinois legislature.
Yes, I did, Dave, and it was pretty intriguing. It was actually before I was a well-known Republican. I figured it was safe because I received an invitation by a leading Democrat on the Senate floor to join them and sit next to them on the Senate floor during some rather historical legislation going on. So I got to see firsthand really how things work or don't work, perhaps. But the most important thing I'd like to tell you about, and I kind of teased you a little earlier, is that I asked her 3 questions, actually the same question 3 times, where I asked her, and this gave me tremendous insight into how the Democrats view spending or trying to curb spending, which is certainly a bit of an oxymoron with the Democrat. But anyway, I asked them, at what point in time should the government stop spending more than they take in? And she said, well, you really can't. Because once people are on these programs, you can't get them off it.
Oh.
Now that's unfortunately, that's not only wrong, it's harmful because, you make them dependent and you take away their freedom.
But now didn't the welfare reforms in the 90s, which was initially opposed by Clinton and initially opposed by the liberal media, to a large extent they worked. I think they cut the welfare rolls by half. So we took an entitlement program, and we have a successful history in that particular example of actually, to the chagrin of many on the liberal side, that it worked. But it did work. It got people off of entitlement, and it got many back into the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where she's coming from over there. It's like 2 and 2 equaling 5.
I agree with you, Dave. And so I asked her again. I said, at what point in time should the government stop spending more than they take in? She said, well, you don't really have to. All you have to do is borrow it.
Continually.
And I thought, okay, I'll maybe wait a little while and ask the question again. And I asked virtually the same question. At what point in time, or should the government ever stop spending more than they take in? She says, you really don't have to, because all you have to do is, she said that a lot of people depend upon the government, but all you hear about are the poor people. She said there's a lot of rich people dependent upon the government, and all we have to do is find the tax loopholes and fill them in and bring the money in to be able to cover the spending.
But that's going to cover the spending for maybe temporarily until you can think of another way and say, but then you're going to push the spending limit higher again.
Absolutely.
Just like
when you borrow, not only are you paying back what you borrowed, but you're paying the interest.
Yeah, how much
and
more?
When your rating goes down, then the interest goes up, so it's costing you more to borrow.
Just amazing. It's just that's an amazing philosophy. But that seems to be, I think you just summed up the Democratic philosophy in a nutshell.
And if there are any Democrats listening, just please, there's no future in that mentality, and you should reach out to the legislatures and make sure we get the Republicans in force to get some sanity back in the spending policies. Well,
one thing that I think that you also have as a belief is that this is not about partisanship, but about patriotism.
Absolutely, and I'm proud to be Republican, not because I'm a Republican. First and foremost, I'm an American. This is the most important election that we've ever had, certainly in my lifetime, and we need to get the country back on the right path. We're on the wrong path now. It's for sake of not just any party, but certainly the country. And I believe that we should go back to Lincoln. Lincoln was best known for he stands for freedom, equality, and truth, and we need to get back to his principles to save the country.
Amen.
And Mickey, you know what? You're a fine example of a private citizen who was not involved in government, who just decided to start something and do something because he didn't feel that something was right. Well, that's the end of today's Last Word.
Thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.